I am Percival, a retired officer of the law, and the tale I'm about to unfold took place a decade ago. Why break my silence now? The date looms near, and I can no longer bear the weight of these memories. Sleep has eluded me for a week, so forgive any inconsistencies or errors in my account. The year was 2013 when I found myself reassigned to a quaint little town known as Holly Forest. Nestled against a forest to the north, it was home to a mere 300 households. Having left the chaos of city policing in my late 30s, this sleepy town was the sanctuary I sought. Crime was virtually non-existent, save for the occasional drunken brawl or petty theft. But on June 5, 2013, that tranquility was shattered. I reported for duty at 6:30 that morning, greeted by the warm smile of our ginger-haired receptionist. I must confess, I harbored a bit of a crush on her. As I made my way to my office, I found my superior waiting for me, accompanied by a stranger. A woman in her 30s, her dirty blonde hair and crisp suit screamed FBI. Chief Davidson introduced me to the FBI agent, Claire Schmitz, who greeted me with an air of cordiality. After exchanging pleasantries, Davidson revealed the reason for their visit, a mysterious package that had arrived that morning. Why would the FBI send an agent for such a mundane task? I asked, examining the VHS tape Davidson handed me. You'll have to see for yourself, he replied. Claire handed me a nondescript cardboard box, devoid of any address, in which the tape had arrived. I inserted the tape into our antiquated VHS player, connected to an equally outdated TV set. The screen flickered to life, revealing a tiled wall, seemingly part of a kitchen. As I fast-forwarded through the footage, my colleagues watched in silence. 10 minutes in, the horrifying reason for the FBI's involvement became clear. The camera panned slowly across the kitchen counter, zooming in on the face of a child, a girl of perhaps 7 or 8 with dirty blonde hair and a small smile. My stomach churned as my mind raced through the worst possible scenarios. The camera continued its slow pan, revealing another girl and then another. In total, 8 girls, all appearing to be between 8 to 10 years old, all smiling, all with their eyes closed as if asleep. The footage ended abruptly, returning to the tiled floor. I was left speechless, feeling as though I'd just watched a preview of a murder case, the very kind I'd hoped to leave behind in the city. I turned to my colleagues, who seemed to be waiting for answers I didn't have. What is this? I asked, trying to maintain my composure. We don't know, Davidson confessed. The package arrived around 4 a.m., with no address and only that tape inside. Have you checked for fingerprints? I asked, my voice shaky. It was clean, Claire replied. We sent a copy to headquarters to try and identify the girls in the video. And? I pressed, my anxiety mounting. Nothing, she replied, leaving me stunned. What do you mean, nothing? We couldn't identify the girls. With the limited information we have, it would take a significant amount of time to sift through the data. Time, we don't have, I finished her sentence. What about the tape? Any significant details? Do we know when it was recorded? I asked, desperate for answers. Yes, we do, she replied. According to the tech lab, the tape was recorded in April. Okay, when in April? I interrupted, taking a large gulp of my now cold coffee to quell the nausea building in my stomach. The tape was recorded in 2024, she finished, looking as dumbfounded as I felt. How is that possible? I exclaimed, jumping up and spilling coffee all over my desk. That was my reaction too, Davidson admitted, handing me a ragged towel. We suspect the tape may have been tampered with. Our team is working on it as we speak, Claire added, as I attempted to clean up the mess. So, what's our next move? I asked, tossing the soaked towel into the trash bin under my desk. Claire retrieved a laptop from a hard case she'd left on the bench under the window. We found a frame in the tape, she said, opening the laptop to reveal an image of a white wall with a series of coordinates written in black ink. The coordinates led us to a small cabin deep in the forest near the town. As we speak, a team of experts is combing through the place. HQ believes that you, as the sole investigator in this station and with your reputation for hunting serial killers, should be involved. So, we're heading to the cabin then? I pushed myself up from my chair, fighting against the weakness in my knees and the turmoil in my stomach. I managed to steady my voice. Unless there's any other information you're not at liberty to share at the moment. I studied her closely, gauging her reaction. My past experiences with the FBI had taught me they had a knack for withholding what they deemed unnecessary information. She shook her head in response. No, I'm not withholding any information. We should get going. The forensic team is waiting for us. Already feeling the strain, I relinquished the driving duties to Chief Davidson. His Wrangler Jeep tore through the city streets, then into the forest, and finally down a narrow dirt road. The cabin came into view quickly, a hive of activity in the otherwise serene landscape. It was swarming with agents, some clad in biohazard suits, others in yellow vests, meticulously collecting samples from every inch of the cabin and its surroundings. Stepping out of the Jeep, a sense of foreboding washed over me. Despite the tranquil surroundings, I felt as though I was in the wrong place at the wrong time, each step drawing me deeper into trouble, the reason for which eluded me. A yellow-vested agent approached us, answering Claire's query with a shake of his head. Nothing. The place is spotless. We checked with the town office. This cabin isn't recorded anywhere. Forensics estimates it was built about 10 years ago, and judging by the overgrowth, it's been deserted for just as long. So, the cabin was built but never occupied? I asked. Yes, sir, he confirmed, adding, but the interior tells a different story. The cabin is in pristine condition. He gestured for us to follow him inside as the agents in biohazard suits cleared out. The cabin itself was unremarkable, constructed of walnut wood and well preserved, with no signs of nature's encroachment. Even the 2 windows overlooking the area were spotlessly clean. I ascended the 3 steps to the wide-open door, the interior surprisingly clean and devoid of any furniture. But the kitchen wall, it was the same wall from the opening of that tape. What I hadn't noticed before was the peculiar design on the tiles. Each one was painted with an eye in the center, a blue eye, not human, but reminiscent of Saruman's eye from Lord of the Rings. Each eye was surrounded by a mass of green, bush-like strokes, as if concealing the owner of those eyes. A chill coursed down my spine, amplifying the unease that had taken root within me. The counter was unmistakable. It was the same one from the tape. This was indeed the place. The floor was constructed of the same hardwood as the rest of the cabin. There was only one other window, offering a view of the area behind the cabin. I moved around the kitchen counter, positioning myself where the camera had been placed in the footage. But there were no white walls to be seen, no signs that anyone had ever inhabited this place. It was as if the cabin existed solely for the purpose of that chilling tape. The mystery deepened, the silence of the cabin echoing the questions swirling in my mind. I left the cabin in disarray, taking a walk around to where the 3rd window overlooked. There was nothing, but the sense of dread kept intensifying. Despite the chirping of the birds and the sound of a nearby river, I felt increasingly nervous with each passing moment. A fever seemed to be building within me. I tried to inspect the surrounding area, but my strength gave out. I awoke, soaked in cold sweat, back in my office, sprawled on the bench under my office window. Davidson had driven me back when I collapsed. A doctor was called, who attributed my fainting spell to overwork and exhaustion. But that couldn't be the case. I hadn't had a single case for the last 6 months that would warrant such stress, and I had been sleeping well every night. He prescribed some medication to regain my health back, but regain from what? I asked Davidson about the case at hand. Nothing. Forensics had no new information beyond what we were briefed earlier. Claire had left moments before to check into a small motel down the main road. It seemed like the case was a dead end, or so I thought. I think that's enough for now. I can hear them calling. I'll continue writing when the calls stop, hopefully by morning. I don't really know why I'm writing this. I think it's because I've tried to explain it to my uncle, but all he said is that I should get my addiction under control and stop forgetting to take my meds. I think my aunt's absence is weighing on him more than he'd ever admit. I can't blame him. About not believing me, I mean. You see, I have a history. I've lost it in the past, twice actually. I'm not here to talk about it, but I think it's important to lay this down first, so you can understand. I've been told something's wrong with my brain. Maybe I was born this way, maybe I've been through too much. That my mother was an addict, she cut ties with her family for 10 years when she had me. That where she had been and who my father was very unclear. She was part of a community in the forgotten part of the nearest big city when she died. I was there when it happened. My Uncle Sean and Aunt Maggie became my guardians just before my 5th birthday, and I'm still with him 20 years later. Maggie left the ranch a few weeks ago after an amicable divorce. I never understood why they were together anyway. She was always working somewhere, traveling a lot. I was closer to him and his sturdy way of life. When I first arrived at the ranch, I was in a bad shape. I got better thanks to him, but when I reached 13, all the memories from my early childhood suddenly came back. I started having flashbacks. My memories came back, but they came back wrong. I had been told that my mother had died of an overdose. Yet in my dreams, I saw her, again and again, in a pool of blood. And then it came. The thing. I won't describe it. It kind of triggers something in me that I really don't need right now. I've been told that what happened next was so traumatic that my brain made up a monster, a fiction, to make sense of what I was seeing and not processing. This thing started obsessing me, and during my early teenage years I focused all my energy on finding what it was and proving it happened. That a monster did kill and mutilated my mother. My nightmares were so bad that I stopped sleeping. I drank so much energy drinks that I ended up in the hospital twice with severe dehydration. Thankfully, I got better. I started working more and more with my uncle's horses. I think it's why he employed me. He saw how manual work and caring for the animals helped. I even got my first girlfriend around my 17th year. I was prom king. Who would have thought? But then, she had a cheerleading accident. In front of me. And I lost it again. I won't go into details, but she broke her neck during halftime, and once again. The way she fell, folded, and screamed. I couldn't process. It was IT. It had shape-shifted to get to her. I'm ashamed of it, but I became violent. Looking for it frantically. Screaming nonsense and talking made-up words. I had to be sedated. She made it alive, but she never wanted to see me again. I was accused by pretty much everyone to make the accident all about myself. And they were kind of right. Now you know how I came to be the crazy guy. I have a bit of a drinking problem too, to be honest. You see, I never went back to high school. I started working full-time at the ranch when I came by, and sometimes it gets lonely. It's not rare to find me passed out in the hay in the early morning in the summer. And what can I tell you? I know I shouldn't. I know it's bad. But I love those nights. I put music, cuddle with my dog, and just look at the cold bright stars, drinking beer until they start spinning. It's because of this bad habit that I realized something was wrong with the horses. You see, contrary to the movies, horses are pretty silent. They don't neigh unless you separate them from their best mate or bring food. And that night, the night it all started, they wouldn't stop. I could hear them galloping and snorting. I wondered if there was a stray dog, but they were used to dogs. I was a bit worried. Horses get stupid when they are afraid, and we had a big show coming. It wasn't the time, so sprain a leg. What really troubled me was my dog. He seemed weird. Max was a pit mix my uncle had rescued when I was 15. He only woke when I got up and walked a bit to look at the paddocks. That's when I realized the moon behind me. It was huge and red. I wondered if I had ever seen it so close and so red before. I looked at Max, the white of his eyes showed, and he started whining. I had never heard him make this noise. Ever. I looked at my phone. It was 2:45. I took a pitchfork to be safe and walked toward the clubhouse. We kept a shotgun there in a locker. The horses kept going crazy and Max's tail was stiff. I was walking fast but carefully in the darkness when the music reached me. A chant. A low chant. I kind of felt it too. Like a vibration. It was coming from the yearlings field near the forest patch on the opposite direction of the clubhouse. My horse was in this field. I backtracked immediately and rushed toward the sound as I dialed my uncle. Of course he didn't answer. He didn't live on the property anymore, but a few miles away. I left a message, whispering, "I'm at the stable, something weird is happening. I think there are people messing with horses I'm going to see. I think you should come, I don't know, call me back." The weird chant buzzed in the background, louder, as if more people had joined. I saw the glow of the fire before I passed the last building. It rose, under the bloody moonlight. Dark figures circled around it. Slowly. The horses seemed to have retreated at the other end of the pasture, and I was relieved. Until I saw it. The figure at the center of this dark carousel. What the F are those creeps doing escaped my lips. A blazing fury filled me, like a white iron, like a white hot blade blinding me. "Hey," I screamed at the top of lungs. "What are you doing?" The figure stopped and turned toward me. I was running now, my knuckles going white around the pitchfork stick. Max was growling. A deep growl. His hair high upon his backbone. The figure, still pretty far, did not move. I could see their heavy hooded cloaks. "What kind of sick pricks are those?" I muttered. "Hey," I screamed again, louder than I ever thought I could scream. And then I saw him. Gun. Gun was my uncle's favorite horse. His old stallion's spitting image. The young horse was lying in front of the fire behind the intruders. "What did you do?" "I'm calling the cops." I stopped and was dialing when a figure detached itself from the group and advanced. It seemed to float. It moved toward Max and I, so silently. The burning rage in veins turned cold and heavy. I opened my mouth, but nothing crossed my lips. Suddenly, Max jumped. He growled in a way I hope to never hear any dog do again. A desperate, furious growl. A life or death sound. A war cry. His warm blood spattered on my face. Honestly, I don't know what happened at that moment. Something lay bloody on the ground, but I couldn't even have told that it used to be a dog. Even less, Max's acid tears filled my eyes as I realized my mouth was still open. I was tasting him. I wanted to scream, to run, to just get swallowed by the earth, and yet I did nothing at all but stare at the floating silhouette. It was so tall. "Come, my child. We were waiting for you. We knew you'd come. Your father told us you'd be here when we'd call." I heard those words, but I wouldn't be able to tell you anything about the thing who spoke them. I say thing because it didn't have a voice. It buzzed. Like a cello. Suddenly, I floated too. Panic seized me. Like a trapped raccoon in my chest, it dug its claws, scratching furiously my closed throat. "Your father said you were ready. We will prepare you." I was now in front of the crackling blaze. The other figures circling me. Smiling men and women welcomed me. On their faces they all wore a similar mark. A cross covering their eyes horizontally, and their nose and mouth vertically. Their hands were still dripping with guns inside. done was opened. A necessary sacrifice, whispered a woman, still smiling. I know you liked him very much. I'm sorry. I could have taken yours, but I knew you wouldn't have forgiven me. Her voice. Aunt Maggie? I croaked. Her eyes shone with a mad light. Gosh, do you look like your mother tonight? She'd be so proud. Her baby boy. The tall figure made a gesture and I spined and found myself looking at the sky. I thought I'd fallen, but I wasn't touching the ground. My aunt continued speaking. She was just like you the first time. So naive, so afraid. She was only 16. That was our mistake, you see. She wasn't ready for her destiny yet when she joined us. That's why we waited for you. The chant, the low buzzing chant, rose once again. The people around me started walking in a circle around me. I was just above Gun's body. One by one, they buried their hands in the belly of the horse and traced the cross on my face. I sealed my lips as tight as I could as the warm blood covered my face. Through the blood and tears I recognized faces. A nurse from the hospital. A teacher. The coffee shop barista. My psychiatrist. I closed my eyes. It was a nightmare. It couldn't be anything but a nightmare. Yet the smell of the horses inside and the crackling fire still reached me as they started ripping my clothes off. This is not real, I whispered. This is not real, this is not real, this is not real, I screamed weakly. Oh, my dear, I'm so sorry, whispered my aunt. I should have told you earlier. But Dr. Carter said it was better to let you grow up a bit first. He said it'd help you keep the secrets if you were afraid of them. I'm sure you don't feel this way, but it was an honor to watch your mother ascend the way she did. Her agony was the most beautiful thing she could have hoped for. You were supposed to ascend with her, but she ruined it. Slut, groaned a middle-aged woman before spitting on the floor. She was my best friend, you know. I thought I knew her. I thought I could trust her. But she lied to me. You see, we know you are his son. But she wasn't a virgin when she was honored. She smiled. It doesn't matter how cruelly she tricked us. You can help us find the perfect girl. One by one, each member traced a bloody cross on my skin. You're so handsome. He'll be so glad. The perfect boy. The perfect vessel, whispered Aunt Maggie. It's almost time, prepare his the tall figure. You're going to give him his heir, the one ruler among the realms. You see, he can't travel here whenever, but you're an anchor, my love. Each generation he shows as an anchor until he finds one who'll give him the sun, the one who'll die for his freedom. Our freedom. Maggie continued, lower. Quiet, slave, and kneel, shrieked the tall figure. She kneeled right near me, and breathed your. I heard a slash. Aunt Maggie's face slid horizontally. Her eyes followed me as the upper part of the face slid slowly toward the ground. Hail the prince. A chant, colder and louder than never before, rose with the crackling flames toward the moon. Aye. Shub-Niggurath. The black goat of the woods with 1,000 young, chanted the disciples. Frozen, I watched the blazing sky above and saw a door. A perfect wooden door, in the sky. It slowly cracked open as the crowd turned to hysterics and the chant turned to mad screams. My soul and the whole earth seemed to split open under the weight of the sound coming from the perfect rectangle of empty darkness in the sky. And then, I saw what I had tried to forget for 20 years. I saw those split red eyes and their evil glare. I saw the iron hooves at the end of too many legs. I saw the tentacles who flayed my mother with their 1,000 beaks. Everything all at once, I saw it shift from an odious form to a more loathsome one. I burned in a way I'll never be able to describe. The tentacle reached, they crossed this unholy door. I woke up 2 weeks ago in the nearest hospital. I was found on the ground, surrounded by the yearlings, the corpse of Gun, and some remains of Max. My uncle explained to me that I had found a bear feasting on Gun, that Max must have attacked it and I'd fainted or been knocked out trying to scare it away. Laying lifeless had saved me. I didn't tell him right away at the hospital what happened. I would have. But you see, when I woke up, she was there. The nurse. The one I had recognized. Dr. Carter. Miss Thompson, my primary school teacher. They were all around me, holding hands. And they smiled. They showed me the sign, the cross on my chest surrounding by the 4 secret signs left by my father. I've tried to explain to my uncle that Aunt Maggie would never come back. Why Gun had to die too? I think he deserved to know. I'm sorry to leave him, but I've got to go now. I thought he could handle the truth. You know, that I had never been crazy and that I shouldn't have been afraid. That everything was going to be okay from now. Because I know now that I'm blessed. You see, he thinks I'm just having another episode, that it's a manic episode or something and I should go back to the clinic. But Dr. Carter is by my sides now. I am special. I am. And he can be too. Anyway, he'll be, whether he joins or not. You'll all be. Because he is coming. He'll bless us all. Because you see, I know I can find her and I'll give him the perfect door. A door to let him in. A door to let all of him in this time. When I was around 6 or 7, I would wake up in the middle of the night, always around 3 a.m. to 4 a.m. to these weird hallucinations of strange shaped objects floating in my field of view. Those objects varied in shape and size, but most of the time were most definitely similar to a cube, but not really. Also, closing my eyes would make them more visible and intense. What frightened me the most about these objects is that I could never tell their size. They would elongate and compress in such an indecipherable manner that it was extremely unpleasant, borderline terrifying. I vividly remember finding myself staring at the ceiling, crying out loud, and when my parents came to help me, I just wasn't able to explain what was wrong. Most times I would just shut myself off from speaking. My parents would always stay with me, calming me down until I fell asleep again. One night, in between my hallucinations and tears, I was able to see a shadowy figure standing in the corner of my room beside my bed. I was able to spot it in my peripheral view as I was staring at the ceiling crying. I couldn't move or react out of the shock. Only a muttered screech would come out from me. My parents noticed a few minutes later I was having another attack. They went to my room to help me. They were probably frustrated, scared, and confused at this point because it happened every other night. Everything unfolded as most nights after that. Every night onward would be a combination of those strange shapes and hallucinations of shadow blobs in the ceiling. I would just block out and wait for the night to be over. But it wouldn't last for too long. It all suddenly stopped in a matter of weeks. Even the weeks after, I would be sleepless, wandering around the living room with all the lights on. I still don't know what the shape hallucinations were for sure, but I've read people that were also having them, and then after some time they would outgrow them. Whenever I ask my parents about it, they always attribute those night terrors to possible child abuse, medication, the room I would sleep in, which was rather big, so might have been intimidating, something I had seen somewhere, schizophrenia. They even mention demons, lol, but I'm not entirely sure. Although, something that always comes to mind for comparison is some screensaver my dad used to have on his laptop. It featured colorful spiky shapes that turned into blobby ones, and then a triangle. This is what my mind points at whenever I think about this. As for the shadowy figure, I'm still not sure if it was even tied to the shapes or the shadow blobs at all. It could be comparable to sleep paralysis, which I get a lot, but it's so hazy, I can't tell if I couldn't move out of the shock or simply because I was half asleep. I just hope it was only my first sleep paralysis, because it only happened once around those years.